Hi everyone, I'm Janvi and I have Huzefa with me here. He has done his BA in psychology from Jai Hind College and then master's in industrial organizational psychology from Mithibai in 2022. That's just last year, very recent experience. And after that, he worked as a consumer behavior researcher in Mumbai and London in organizations. And now he's doing a research master's in Radboud University in behavioral science in Netherlands. So thank you so much for joining today, Huzefa.
Thank you so much, Jahnavi, for having me. It's a pleasure connecting with you again.
Thank you. And I'm sure students will have a lot of questions about your master's in Netherlands and why you chose that. So I'm going to make a separate video on that. Today, I'm just focusing on your experiences of industrial organizational psychology and basically what got you interested in that. So I want to start with, why did you choose to study industrial organizational psychology?
This was during my stint when I was working in the talent development department at Thomas Cook in Mumbai. So after my graduation from Jai Hind, I took up a short internship to work with Thomas Cook in that department. And I was just very fascinated by the whole idea of you designing curriculum for your employees and trying to help them upskill themselves at the same time they functioning on their roles. And this got me thinking about how can you develop capability of your personnel in the organization. And but the gap that I found is a lot of my seniors had an MBA in HR, which is quite a great degree, but I still feel that there was a short disconnect as to you not having more information about organizational behavior or group dynamics or change management, which are core subjects when you study industrial and organizational psychology. And later, when I worked into consumer insights, these subjects became more interesting to me because I worked on client studies that required me to redesign brand personality, or which were more about creating employee branding to attract good talent for their organizations, and also to just make better internal communication. So that's what inspired me to take up a program that had some sort of a psychology inclination, but then at the same time, it had organizational aspect to it. So that's why I chose biopsychology.
That's so brilliant. Thank you for saying that. I mean, because there is so much confusion about when students ask, but the way you've described it is brilliantly put of what an IO psychology course would take you towards and what kind of interests are ideal for people who want to study IO psychology. Because it's so different from counseling and clinical psychology fields. So thanks for sharing that. So you did your course in Mithibai. How was your course like? And what was your experience?
So the course was very good. It had a good structure as compared to its counterpart. And I had, if I remember correctly, electives like personality psychology, organizational behavior, change management, consumer psychology, practical courses which required you to develop psychological instruments to develop, let's say, work satisfaction or employee citizenship behaviors, and stuff like that. So it was quite a good course. But if I could go back in time, one thing that I wish I would have improved about the course is more focused on the quantitative aspect of psychology. So just to help them have better statistics scores or more statistics scores. So, you become better with numbers. Because the thing that I find in my colleagues is, a lot of us as psych graduates are, quite scared of numbers. As in, we want to run away from that. It just feels very difficult to understand. But then at the same time, you also have to understand that because a lot of us, a lot of it around us is all data, you have to be comfortable making sense of data, and that is something that I think is a skill that you'll have to learn in the long term. So why not start right now?
Yeah, thanks for that insight. And so, how was it like in your first year and your second year? Because like in counseling psychology, in our first year, we have something very general, which both clinical and counseling students take together, and then in the second year, we go separate in our specialization. So I was wondering, how is your structure like in that sense? What did you study in the first year, and then how did you go ahead with your second year?
So now over here, because the course was quite specialized for industrial and organizational psychology, and it was a 2 year program. So we had 4 semesters. So in the first semester, it was more of general psychology revision sort of subjects. But then starting from the second semester, it was more about industrial organizational psychology, and you developing scales and measures to measure such a industrial variant, and having more subjects that were about group dynamics and stuff like that. And then second year was also similar to this, but then in the fourth semester, you had to write your master's thesis and alongside also do a compulsory internship at an organization for which you had to write a report for the same.
Okay.
So I think that were quite good components that made it more like a holistic sort of an education with you having theory and practical sort of knowledge.
That's great. So, like in the fourth year, when you were doing this internship and writing your master's, did you have any courses?
Yeah, yeah. We had 2 courses, but then you still had courses.
Okay, okay. I think that's a good example because yeah, we also start off with general, but like with you, it seems like right from the second semester onwards, they are teaching you how to do
Mm.
probably test develop, like how to develop your own scales
Yeah,
and
yeah,
measures and do measurement and maybe psychometrics and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Um, oh, that's brilliant. Okay. So, after finishing, okay, before I ask this question, I want to know. So, I have heard that you don't need a full psychology major, which means like all 6 subjects in psychology to do a master's in IO. Is that what you think of too?
Y- Yeah. So the criteria that we had for Metiva is even if you had a part major sort of thing, so 3 papers of psychology and 3 for other subjects, they still allowed you to enter the program back in 2021 when I took my admission. I don't know the recent criterias, but I think that was the case back then. Then you having 6 papers of psychology always gives you that advantage of you having done a lot of these basic psychological concepts and theories and stuff before. So it
Okay,
does
that
help, but
helps.
I think it's not entirely necessary for you to have a 6 paper psychology honored sort of thing.
And so people who don't know what this 3 paper, 6 paper is, I've made a video on BA in psychology, which will help you understand because there are like you have to do a major, which could be part major or full major. Full major means you're doing full third year as all psychology subjects, and part major means you're doing 3 subjects in psychology and 3 subjects in sociology or some other subject. But so people who don't have any background in psychology, like a BCom person, can they get admission for IoPsych from your? I think
Uh,
you must have done if you graduated in 2022. I think it must be 2020 when you started.
yeah, yeah. I think slightly difficult because they have quite a strong criteria for you to at least have some background in psychology for you to enter that course.
Okay, but can you
I
still
think
apply? Just in do you know? You might not know this, but
no. But then I think for such courses, you could go on IGNU or more open course websites that don't have very rigid criterias for these things.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to because I'm sure this would be a question that would pop up in the chat. Um, Perfect. So, what are the job prospects after doing IO psychology from India? If you have any insights.
Oh, there are a number of openings that you can look at.
Mm.
Number one thing that I can think of, and a lot of my friends opted for, is talent acquisition. That's like you recruiting people. And secondly, more specialized roles could, look like, careers in training and development or change management consulting that a lot of these big four consulting firms look at. Also, it could be something about human resource strategy consulting or management consulting for that matter. You can also look at career in psychometrics and test development because you have a lot of these standardized tests that these companies use for recruitment. There are, a lot of these companies that always prefer a personalized test. So then you could work in those companies that offer such solutions to big MNCs. You could also look at market research and consumer insights. So a lot of your psych knowledge can come over there. So I think these are the career options that you can look at. And with experience, you always get better at what you do. So
Thank you. And looking back on a realistic perspective, you must have had a number of people who graduated from your university. Do you know that a good number of people get jobs in this field, or what was your experience?
I think most of my classmates got a job.
That's good.
As
Okay.
in to start with, all of them were able to get something. And then as you specialize more into your field, it becomes better. But most of them got a job.
That's great to know. Thanks. Yeah. So this is, I mean, a reality check, but again, it's like Mumbai and Mithibai College. So I want to make sure that if you're watching this in like a smaller town, it might not be generalizable, but and this is
Hmm.
just personal insight. It could change every
Yes.
year. But it's just good to know what are the possibilities of getting a job. Um, again, and I know that we are going to make a separate video on this, but what brought you to studying abroad in Netherlands after finishing your IO psychology?
Um, so no, when I was working as a consumer behavior researcher, as into this qualitative research domain, I just wanted to feel that as a researcher, you should also be able to design interventions.
Mm-hmm.
And for you to be able to do that, you needed more experimental design, understanding of experimental design and how do you test such interventions. So that is what is something that inspired me to take up a more rigorous uh, quantitative driven program in behavioral science that helps you specialize in understanding human decision making and other aspects of it. So that's what got me here
Okay.
to pursue a research master's.
Wow. Great. Thanks for sharing. And so were you very clear that you wanted to do IO psychology from the time maybe you were in Jai Hind College?
Kind of, yes, because I was always someone who had been doing these short startup sort of things. And along with psychology, I also had taken subjects like advertising in my
Mm-hmm.
bachelor's during the second year. So, that quite, that sparked quite an interest in me to merge this field of advertising, communication, business, and psychology. So I always wanted to be on the business side of psychology. So I think industrial psychology was the best option for me to get over there.
Great.
I was not someone who was quite inclined towards counseling or clinical psychology for that matter.
Right. And I think this is also a good point to clarify that, for example, as part of my graduate research assistantship, I do career counseling, which comes in the field of counseling. And how my professor who's a psychologist in the field of work psychology, distinguishes IO psychology, which is industrial organization psychology, from work psychology, is that IO psychology is more from the organizational lens. So you're creating a test for the organization, whereas
Okay.
what I am doing, or like what work psychology or career counseling, is more of from the individual's lens. So your area of interest, my area of interest is the individual, and your area of interest is the organization.
Organization.
So it's what direction you want to work in is like, if you want to work on a mass level where you're working for an organization, then I think that's what it is. I don't know if that's the distinguish that you're familiar with, or do you think that
Yeah.
there's something more different with, yeah, work
No,
cycle?
I think you quite explained it well. I think that's how you should be able to look at these two different domains. So yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
So that's for students who are confused. If you feel like, oh, I want to do career counseling, then I don't think industrial psychology is the place for you. It's being in counseling psychology. However, if you want to do more of organizational test development, and that is pretty, I mean, it's all obviously in demand now. Big companies do want. When I worked as a psychologist in one of the companies in India, is they also were looking for people who make tests, and so it's a big thing. It's becoming
Yeah,
big now in India.
right.
I had a mainly one of the last questions is, do you have any message for students who are confused about whether they should study IO psychology or other fields, which I've touched upon a little bit, but like anything that you have in mind about students who are confused about studying IO psychology, how would they decide that this is the right field for me? Or any tips
I
for
think
helping them decide that? Yeah.
one thing that I've always followed is just to try and test out things. So
Mm.
I did a number of internships starting from a 12th grade, working into sales. into career counseling also, into business development, into product development, into user experience designing, into market research, to be able to figure out that all of these wheels, when they work and function efficiently together, makes for an entire organization. So for you to be able to make for a good industrial organizational psychologist, firstly, you have to understand how businesses work. So unless and until you don't get your hands dirty, it is very difficult that you'll have a deep sort of a perspective as to how do you manage people, because it's all about people and how do you make them function efficiently. So
Mm-hmm.
this is something. And with regards to psychology as a general field, someone who's very curious and who's willing to learn and unlearn every day is someone that I think we should be looking at for psychology related subjects, because you have to on a daily basis sit with difficult research papers to try to understand what they mean, or statistical reports or experimental designs for that matter. So, and, but at the same time, have a local mindset, as in try to see the problem from an individual's perspective, even though you might be making an organization wide decision, but then you have to think like a layman of how he or she will react to such a thing. I think is what makes for a good industrial organizational psychologist.
Wow, that's really insightful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Any other messages or anything else that you want to share for the students?
Janvi, given the era that we are currently in, every sector wants to leverage knowledge of psychology, starting from design to user experience to artificial intelligence to healthcare to entertainment. Even if you see Netflix has a behavioral scientist working who tries to understand how do people consume content.
Mm,
So then now is not the time to just stigmatize that you are studying psychology. Rather, make it look like you are trying to understand human behavior and try to leverage it efficiently in whichever field that you're working in. I think now is, now this degree is no more very specialized degree, but I think a good understanding of it can help you go places, and if you know how to apply it correctly.
that's brilliant.
So yeah.
And you are one example because we have fewer men in psychology, and you are one example of that. I don't know, was that your experience too in your education
Yeah,
throughout?
definitely, definitely. In Jahin, the class of 150 students, if I remember correctly, we had only three guys who took
Okay.
psychology. In Mithibai, again, in a class of 50, we had three male.
How does it feel like to be a minority? That's such a
Oh, but
counseling side question. Yeah.
yeah, but this is how the field is just going forward. Yeah, as in, if you see any organization for talent acquisition role, majorly looks for a female who's good over a call conversation, and is does have that good convincing skill to convince the candidate to come for an interview. Whereas men are supposed to be more at those business side of things, and I think this is the divide that we are trying to bridge in over here.
Great.
That it is not that you should look at things these way. So.
Absolutely. Psychology, I think, is one of the few fields, not few, but like, yeah, one of the few. Now it's coming as a science, like it's coming under
Yeah,
STEM,
yeah.
that has a women majority, but it's very appreciated to have. Like, I've had so many people reach out to me and be like, I'm looking for a male therapist, and I rarely have people to recommend. So I really appreciate that you're setting that example for the future generation with the work that you're doing, because you have so much to offer, and we need diversity and we need more perspective from you. And yeah, I mean, that's most of the questions that I have. Everything is covered. And the next question is like, just if you have any recommendation for other colleges, because if it's hard to get into Mitibai, I don't know, is it easy to get accepted, hard to get accepted? And if so, do you have recommendations for other colleges that students could look at if they don't get into Mitibai?
So in Mumbai specifically, I'm aware that University of Mumbai has a program in
Right.
Masters in Applied Psychology, which has a track for industrial organizational psychology. And apart from this, there are colleges like KC College had a newly launched program. Mithibai has this program. KJ Somaya has this program.
Yeah.
And I think Tata Institute of Social Sciences also has a very well-renowned program for organizational industrial psychology. But then the other, these other four private programs are slightly competitive, and I also have an entrance exam for which they test you on your general psychology knowledge, and only after which you are invited for the final applications.
Got it.
And the University of Mumbai one is more of a merit-based thing. So, based on your bachelor grades, they select you. So I
Is
think
that the
that's the
same with
difference.
Mithibai too?
No, not anymore.
So
Mitibai
you have
also
to
has an
give an
entrance
entrance
exam.
exam.
No, I did not have to because I was during the time that they were still accepting you based on your bachelor grades. But
Okay.
now I'm sure that they have an entrance exam.
Okay, okay. Thank you. And the next question you can feel free to answer or not answer is it expensive, affordable? What is the fee structure like for your program?
It was slightly expensive because I remember paying around 30,000 for first year and then 40,000 for the second year.
Which is very similar to I mean, I think I also had to pay 30 both years.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
similar, but it's not
But
like
then,
Mumbai University, which would be 5,000 or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But for the bachelor's, because it was an aided program, you only paid 5 to 6,000 for
Right.
3 years. So I think yeah, that was quite something that was different.
Yeah.
And and why I found it expensive is I think I had part of my education online. So it seemed like it was slightly expensive for an online sort of a thing to pay 30,000 or something. But
That
yeah,
is so true. Yeah, 30,000 rupees can. Yeah, mine was, I mean, because I graduated right before COVID. So for me, it was not online, but I think it was the same. Like I was in SNDT University and it was 30,000. And yeah, obviously coming from, I was in Xavier's, which is, I remember paying 3,000 something, 700 in the first year and then 3,000 something in the second year. And 6,000 or 7,000, and that too you, if you score well you get scholarships and all that. So I know that that can be a lot because Mumbai does a great job of aiding colleges and making education affordable.
yeah,
So yeah, I think that that makes sense. But thank you. I mean, it's not as much again as something like lifespan counseling, which is almost like 90,000 a year or something.
yeah, yeah.
So it's helpful to know. I appreciate you so much with all of your insights and also being this role model that a lot of students can look up to. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
And
for your kind words once again. Thank
yeah,
you.
and I'm looking forward to the other video on your experience in Netherlands.
Sure. That'll come back soon.